Welcome to Vault Hunters. Oh wait, this isn't a normal world. Oh right, I accidentally hit the world setting tab and made it a sky vault. Oh well, no point changing it now. Welcome to 100 Days Sky Vault. There are going to be a few things different from the normal Vault Hunters experience to the sky vaults. First off, the island spawns with an already made portal, and we're obviously in the sky. But for the most part, I'll introduce you to each room as they appear. So spawning in on day 0, I look at the small amount of room I have before looking at my quest book to claim the rewards from the beginning quests. The second quest completed gives our first skill point, but I'll talk about which skill I'll take when we get inside the vault. Breaking the first crystal, I jump straight into the first raw vault, and the first skill I grab is Vein Miner, because it'll mine multiple blocks when I break only one, which will be very useful when it comes to early resource gathering and even later on just mining. I craft a pickaxe and immediately start to work on getting stone, and using my new stone shovel, I grab gravel and dirt for later usage. The first room I find in the vault is a chromatic iron room, which is good, as it is needed in many recipes throughout Vault Hunters. I grab as much as I can easily, and then also grab vault stone, which will provide me with vault crystals, which we'll use later on. I skip past most rooms not wanting to fight anything, because natural regen is disabled in vaults. I don't though skip the second special room, which is a farm room. These will have all the different plants that can be found naturally growing in the overworld, and you can even find red and normal sand here. And the last room of note in this vault is a quarry room, which has plenty of vanilla ores. Then, to finish off this vault, I off myself in lava to exit it quickly. I craft a couple of chests so I can dump my inventory for the moment. Don't worry, most important things will get properly organized eventually. The next thing to complete is making a vault altar, which we use those vault crystals I mentioned earlier on this so that we can go into the normal proper vaults. And to craft it, all that is needed is 4 stone bricks, 2 obsidian, 2 chromatic iron, and 1 diamond. So I grab another crystal and head right into another vault, mainly for obsidian. The main things of note here were finding a couple of mystery eggs, sugarcane, kelp, dripstone, and the obsidian I needed. As mentioned prior, I found 2 mystery eggs, and the use of these is being able to get passive mob spawn eggs. With the vault altar crafted, or as I'll be referring to it from now on as the vaulter, we can now go into normal vaults by crafting a vault crystal. Crafting a vault crystal involves placing a crystal into the vaulter, and it then gives requirements of what it would need in order to make the crystal itself, and all I have to do is drop the items onto the vaulter itself, and then it'll submit them, which then adds a step towards being able to fully craft the crystal. Unfortunately for the moment, I did not have enough iron on hand in order to finish this one. Plus I needed to wait for the tree to grow, so before going into another raw vault, I expanded the size of the island using slabs, doubling the amount of blocks I could use. I use whatever little iron I had in order to make shears, which then is submitted into the vaulter. Which then leads me into another vault. I find an ore room that generates large quantities of vanilla ores, which was going to be great, except for the fact that I had a very embarrassing way of dying. I found another ore room as the first room in the vault, and this time I didn't die immediately. Other than mining, there wasn't much else, though this death was a mistake. After smelting the iron I got from the vault, I finished making my first vault crystal. Finishing the quest of making my first vault crystal awards me with a shulker box, which then is good for early inventory management, but we can get things that are even better later. The next goal was to get the vault enchanter. This makes the enchanting process much easier than having to get villagers for books, or going through the basic process of enchanting normally. I only needed to either find a POI or a point of interest that has an enchantment table already placed, or to find more obsidian. Upon entering into another vault, I end up dying again. At this point, I'm at an impasse. With no raw crystals yet to be grown, I could either do the smart thing and wait for a new raw crystal to fully grow in order to loot chests and get enough XP to level up and get the heal ability, or I could just go into a normal vault with 0 gear and only my diamond pickaxe and axe, and I think the choice is obvious. I dive straight into the vault. So, to give a basic rundown on the vaults, each vault has its own objective. There are 6 objectives in total, the first of which are elixir vaults. In these vaults, mining ores, defeating different mobs, and opening different chests, each thing will grant a different amount of elixir, and in each vault, each of these things will grant more or less elixir, completely randomized on the vault. And upon filling the bar on the top of the screen and consuming a lodestone will mark completion of the vault, earning us a loot crate. The main highlights of this vault are finding an ornate chest POI. There are different types of chests in the vault, each focusing on different parts of the mod, so I'll go over them as necessary. But these chests in particular will give vault gear and weapons, which are much better than the vanilla gear, and they will provide different stat bonuses, even some increasing the rarity of loot found in chests or the quantity of loot. The next big highlight is almost dying, and then later dying. No worries, we still don't have any penalties in the vaults until level 20. Although having died, I still got lots of good loot from the chests. But as it goes sometimes, another death, another vault. I was doing okay in this vault until it got to this part. Already, things were not looking too hot. I'm back at half a heart and now there's a champion. Champions are special enemies that spawn in the vaults. They are indicated by this trophy icon above their heads, and they will have different modifiers, and this one has extra strength, so it will deal more damage to me, even though that wouldn't matter with my current health. The only thing I can do is run to a safer spot. Even though it's not my preferred strategy, the only thing I can think of is cheesing these mobs. Defeating champions will award different vault gear, and thankfully I got a sword to be an upgrade to my diamond axe. It's not a great sword, but it is level 0, so that's to be expected. Nothing much happens other than mining the first bits of Larimar, which is incredibly important because Larimar is basically used to craft everything that's modded. The result of this one vault got me to level 8. As I mentioned earlier, I am playing with double XP, so that would be the main reason why, but it was still a shock to me going up that quickly. And the reason that can be bad is because the difficulty of the vaults scale off of your level, with there being specific landmark levels that will increase the vault's difficulty vastly. With these levels though, we now have 8 skill points and 1 expertise point. Skill points are of course used on things like Vein Miner and other skills, but expertise points are only gained once every 5 levels. And the reason for that is because the expertise points are used in this menu here, and they will provide very different, more passive / quality of life sorts of buffs via increasing how much you can modify a crystal or by increasing how much normal XP you can gain. I'm going to put my first point into Fortunate because it gives me a permanent level in Fortune, so even when my pickaxe has Fortune 3 on it, it will be the equivalent of having Fortune 4. And for the most part, some of the skills, unless it's necessary or important, I won't be mentioning them all the time, and the same goes along with the expertise points. Opening the crate, I get a lot of offhand gear. After rolling the gear, only one of them really sticks out at the moment as being particularly useful. This trash can shield gives me an extra heart and a half and also has a 10% block chance. Because shields work differently in Vault Hunters, instead of just being able to right click to hold them up and block all damage, these will instead have a percentage chance in order to block, so you can't just block every single instance of damage. The rest of my skill points go into leveling up heal one more time and upgrading my passive strength and mining haste. Now with the Vault Enchanter, I'm finally able to easily enchant all my tools and armor. Another note about the vault gear is I won't be able to upgrade it with protection, and I can only upgrade it with Unbreaking 3, as the armor having protection would be too strong. All I needed from the raw vaults at the moment was sand so that I could make a vial. Vials are a different way to heal in the vaults, but they have a limited amount of charges that can be filled depending on the one you craft. Seeing as there are 3 different types of vials, I will explain how each of them will refill. The Goblin Vial will refill off of just looting chests. The Slaughterer's Vial will refill off of killing mobs, and the Pacifist's Vial will just recharge over time. With sand acquired, I just head straight back out of the vault to make those vials. I craft the Goblin Vial and the Slaughterer's Vial, but end up later switching fully to the Slaughterer's Vial as I do think it's the best of the 3. I make an animal pen, which are extremely useful blocks that allow me to jar an animal and put it inside the pen, keeping any and all I breed to this one location, so I won't have another Omega Cow pen here sadly. Using my new tool station, I craft a chromatic iron pickaxe, which I can then later add special modifiers to them, as you will see later. I came into this vault for red flowers so I could make red dye. After immediately finding the red tulips, I don't know why I had the strangest bug with my inventory. After having dealt with that, I ended up finding an enigma chest. These chests have some of the best loot that you can find in these raw vaults. And then I proceed to find 3 more. The best things from them being 2 pickerangs and 2 pouches completely for free. I go through all the loot I got and determine what is and isn't useful. And the reason why I needed the red dye was so that I could turn the gray wool I had picked up earlier into purple wool. And the reason I needed that purple wool was so I could make a shard pouch, as the shard pouch will pick up all the soul shards that are dropped from mobs in the vaults that you may have noticed. And the quest reward for this is pretty nice. Having acquired some pouches, it's time to explain exactly what they do. These are basically just better shulker boxes. Instead of having to place them on the ground, I'm able to access them from my inventory, or even have one in a backpack slot being accessible from a hotkey. And even further, you can make pickup upgrades that will automatically pick up any items that are on the ground and have a filter to be specific items. There are filters that Vault Hunters provides, or you can customize the filters yourself. The bounty table is a also extremely useful station, as it gives us different tasks to complete by either objectives inside of the vaults or by submitting items into the table, giving various rewards with each task's reward being different. Needing more resources from the normal vaults, I head back in. One of the highlights was finding my first magnet. Magnets can be equipped in these side slots and will float nearby items to me instead of needing to walk right over top of items to pick them up. And the next big highlight was finding a blacksmith room. This giant structure only generates ornate chests. Finding this in the early game is incredible because it can give tons of armor and weapons. The next big highlight is being an idiot. I leave the vault thinking I'm going to complete it when I needed to consume a lodestone. I was thinking of a different vault objective at the time for some reason, so that's why I did this absolutely dumb move. You can even see my realization here as I noticed I had no completion crate. I now grab a handful of rabbit hides from the raw vault to make a coin bag. It works similarly to the shard pouch, except I can't lose this when I die. And you'll see the reason why that's useful later. Day 9 was filled with miscellaneous things like expanding the base, adding more furnaces, and getting distracted. After focusing up, I head into another vault. Now that we've reached level 10, there is a new vault objective in the form of braziers. The way to complete these objectives is by finding and lighting 3 braziers. They will always have a positive and negative modifier that gets added when lighting them, with positives being things like fuller chests and negatives being things like the mobs will have more health and damage. I go about lighting the braziers until I have an extremely depressing end to the vault. After that unfortunate end to the vault, I go and craft the jewel crafting table and applicator. The jewel applicator will be especially important as I could use it to modify different vault tools later, which will help increase the speed in which I can loot the vaults. And using the vault essence I've gathered from living chests up to this point, I make my first knowledge star, granting me my first mod. And what do I do with this power? I get the drawers mod because I like to stay somewhat organized. It's boring, but organization is key. Needing a few pieces of obsidian, I go into a raw vault and find another room, and do something that looks extremely cursed. Day 11 mainly consists of me working on the storage problem by crafting up a bunch of drawers, which, while the larger ones can only hold one specific item or block, it can hold an extremely large amounts of said item. And you'll see later on how much this chest storage ends up saving me in the long run. With the drawers, while they have a limited capacity at the moment, you can also craft upgrades for them that will increase multiplicatively the amount of items they can hold. On day 12, I attempted to start something for a base, but took it down because I would plan on doing something a little different later. I next collect a lot of moss as it can work for some of the things that I could use grass for, and it just looks prettier. On the evening of day 14, I come back from a vault in which, having just finished it, I get 2 more levels, and I can finally take a skill point in something I've been wanting for a while now, being Speed 1. Day 15, I mostly spend on expanding the amount of drawers I have, and changing around the general setup of them. and by night I make pickup upgrades for the other pouches that I have. I run another vault on day 16, and finish it on day 17, and leveling up another 4 times, I just put those into a second point of speed. Even though each level takes 4 skill points, I feel like it's worth it because of the time it's saving me since I can run faster through the vaults. I think it's time I finally explain what jewels are. These jewels are found in jewel pouches. When opening a jewel pouch, you get a selection between 2 jewels. Or if you don't like what there is, you can pick the random option that will be a completely random jewel. And if you wanted a third selection, you can always get an expertise point that allows there to be a third possible selection. And then the main purpose of these are to add them onto your vault tools such as the pickaxe, or what we will be modifying right now being the sickle, turning it into a chest looting monster. The next vault I headed into, the most exciting things I found were 2 more pouches and another star. After having been sitting on a knowledge point, I decided to put it into the double pouches mod, giving double the space in one pouch, hence the name double pouch. At the beginning of day 19, I run a vault, and upon exiting, I reach level 20. Level 20 is one of those milestone levels I had mentioned earlier, because now there's new loot in some of the chests. But with that, now when I die in a vault instead, not only will I lose durability upon death, I will now also lose everything and have to buy it back, which you will unfortunately see later. Day 21 is mainly spent building different farms or building the framework for ones I'll be finishing later. I did place this Crimson Nylium because I was going to use the Crimson Trees for the base I was going to make, but I ended up changing it later and using different blocks. And as I was setting up something new for the base, I did the stupidest thing I could have done. It's quite fitting that it be raining tonight. Day 22, I re-equip myself with new armor and a new soul pouch. I then spend days 22 into 24 looking for pumpkins just so I could finish the next vault crystal. This was how much of the vault I had to explore before finding the pumpkins. I explored a whole 78 rooms in one vault just to find pumpkins. On day 24, after going over the loot I finally got a sheep egg, which means I'll finally be able to breed the sheep en masse. And trust me, there will be plenty. Later, I add a warped side for the warped trees, and I also add a soul sand patch for nether wart. On day 26, I find an X-Mark room. These can offer great rewards, the best of which being the legendary Excalibur, but only if you defeat all its guardians. I am a little haunted by an experience I had before where there were 2 baby guardians, but that's never stopped me before, so you know for sure I headed straight down there. Well, that didn't work out. All is well though, because I was sure I'd have enough money to get my stuff back. And this gives me a chance to demonstrate on how we can get our stuff back once we die in the vaults post level 20. And to get my stuff back, I have to craft the spirit extractor, which then I can put my soul onto it to be able to buy my stuff back. And another note to mention with the spirit extractor is it is really cheap right now because I didn't have much on me when I died, just my gear and equipment. But if I had a bunch of loot or other high value things, the price will go up the more stuff I had on me when I died. The next vault crystal requires 6 pufferfish, so I would need to make a pond so I could do fishing. I grabbed lots of grass blocks because I want to make a nice looking pond to fish in. On day 27, I start work on the pond. And using precarious building methods, I think it all came out well. And I can always improve it later. Day 28 mainly consists of fishing, and I am not joking on that. I spent 11 whole minutes just trying to get 6 pufferfish. Unfortunately, the blessed pufferfish vault ended in another tragedy. But on the bright side, by day 29, passive mobs have started spawning, which is super nice as it means I will no longer be needing the mystery eggs for those specific mobs. My least favorite thing in the next vault was that I found a goated ore room, but it has these extra challenging mobs that I just couldn't handle at the moment. The most notable thing was how this freak wouldn't leave me alone for the longest time. I just had to kill him. Days 33 through 35 consisted of me working on more farms, and after I finished the sugarcane, I realized an extremely annoying mistake I had made, and all I know is I am not going back on it. Still on day 35, I run into another vault and end up getting my first scavenger vault objective. This vault objective works is that they will have different items that you collect from various sources. In this one, I will need ripped pages from wooden chests, green mob essence from horde mobs, and skeleton wishbones from vault ores. Also in this vault, I will finally talk about these things. There are different ones scattered throughout the vaults, but breaking one of these has a low chance to give an extremely good buff for vaults. That has a limited time, but can also be activated at any time. On breaking the first one though, you are guaranteed to get one as a quest reward. And while this isn't the greatest one I could have gotten, I still might be able to use this later. Unfortunately, after returning and looking at the loot from the crate, I accidentally killed some chickens, which made me very sad. At this point, I finally get an offensive skill in Javelin because I got a focus that adds a whole skill point into it for free, as long as I already have it learned. Then days 38, 39, and 40 were spent looking for melons as I needed them for the next crystal. And after finding them, I make pastures for melons and pumpkins. After finishing the vault on day 43, I used 2 of my stored up knowledge points to get the refined storage mod. While I can't use it fully until later, I can at least try and get some of the components for it from mod boxes, which I've been hoarding. To explain how the mod boxes work, when you right click them, it will give you a random item from any of the mods that you have unlocked in the mod menu with a knowledge star. The most exciting thing being the 4K storage disk, but nothing too special. Even though those were a bust, I still had an idea. You see, I had just finished a vault where, in the completion crate, I got a library room inscription. Inscriptions are things that can be applied to vault crystals to have a guaranteed room to spawn in the vault. And how you usually get them is by either, as mentioned, the completion crates, crafting them, or even finding them in living chests. And this one specifically, the library room, will have increased gilded chests. Gilded chests are good because they have things like the jewel pouches, magnets, and dreamstones, which are used for catalysts. Speaking of catalysts, I'll explain what they do right now. Catalysts will increase the amount of chests that spawn in the vault as seen in the side-by-side video here. But adding catalysts will add challenge stacks, which increase the health and damage of mobs in the vault. But there is something you can get with expertise points that will have the chance to have those challenge stacks not be applied when using catalysts. I had a good feeling about this vault because I even just got a free crystal from the Lucky Ultra perk. Because this vault was a brazier vault, I wanted to get some buffs from them that would increase the loot from the chests even further. Incidentally, while looking for braziers, I found an Omega Mushroom that gives lots of living chests. I did stay here longer than I should have, but I really wanted the more knowledge essence, so can you blame me? With braziers lit, I finally head into the library room. After leaving the library, I continued in the vault and found more gilded POIs, and also the best thing I could have found at this point in the game, in a vendor. I know I haven't talked about what these are just yet, but vendors start spawning once you reach level 20 and act as a shop where you can spend your gold inside the vaults. And what I found in this one was a loot bell. It's the next upgrade for the pouches that I haven't even unlocked yet, which was super exciting. And immediately after, I had a moment that terrified me to my core. I was not risking staying in the vault any longer. The passive mobs are spawning at an incredible rate now. Day 45, I see that I need ink sacs for the next crystal, and looking in game, there's no easy ways to get these other than killing squids. Instead of getting the mystery eggs to spawn them in one at a time, I use this website called Chunkbase to find a river biome, and while there is one right next to me, I decide to build a manual squid farm where there is a bigger area just for more room. And then I start the journey to get to the river. But I knew something like this was going to happen. I really wish I turned phantoms off before making this world. I can't even go to disable them now because I don't want to enable cheats because I know how that will go. Day 49, I spent most of it making an area for trees to grow, and then going back to making the walkway to the squids. The most annoying part of this was the fact I had to go all the way down from Y136 to Y50, so while I wanted this to look nice, that'll be for a future time, if ever. After I add the water walls on day 50, I notice they start spawning, and unfortunately keep falling into the void. But because of the dry spots, after adding a full floor, at least it means it's a semi-automatic. Yippee. Day 51 only has something notable to mention because I forgot to bring my pouches into the vault. But I stayed long enough to find a vendor that was selling a knowledge star for 12 gold, which was the last one I needed for the powwow mod. On day 53, I start farming calcite because I have a better idea of what I want to do for the main base, and I'm going to need a lot of calcite. Though because of a specific block I wanted to use, I also needed a lot of slime. So, head back to Chunkbase to see that there are 2 slime chunks right next to me. Something I found pretty funny was as I was getting down to the slime Y level, I found out that my previous deaths were still at void level, meaning if I wanted to retrieve some things that were on me, I would have the ability to, which would be helpful later. After I finished the platform for the slimes, I unfortunately realized that I had built this one chunk away from where it should have been, so I had to go about extending it. After that now, the slimes spawn properly, and yes, this is incredibly slow. There is a way to make a faster, all-encompassing mob farm later, I just won't be able to do it within these 100 days. Day 57, I also added some bamboo to the growing farm area. On the evening of day 60, I work on a more proper combat build by taking the Nova skill, and then also taking the specialization of Frost Nova. To then pair with Frost Nova, I also take the talent of Frostbite, which makes it where chilled mobs, once hit, have the chance to be put in a block of ice that will insta-kill them if they're hit in that block of ice. Day 61 and 62 were focused on working on the base. I make sure to put all my stuff away before building for no losses just in case I fall, but as a backup I also added safety water. The more I built, the more realization I had in how difficult building this would actually be, which was just making me yearn for the angel block. To explain what that is, the angel block is an extremely expensive block, as it requires a knowledge star and 2 echo pogs. I know I haven't gone into what pogs are, but these silly little things need 1 of each unique vault ore, which are ashium, bombinite, gorgonite, iscalium, pizzanite, sparkletine, tubium, upalane, and xenium. All fun names. While I had a few of these ores, I still needed 14 of each one, as an echo pog needs a whole 8, and the only reason why I only need 14 of them is because I already have a couple of pogs. Which, to add to that, the echo pog needs 8 of these, as each of them needs 4 for a perfect echo gem, which the echo gems are also the rarest of the vault ores. After fantasizing about the angel block, I get back to working on the base. After making a small amount of progress on the base, I get the motivation to just make a Giga Ore Vault using plentiful catalysts. Even though I still need to get to level 50 in order to actually take the expertise point for the angel block, I can at least have all the ores needed ready for it when I get there. I also make a new pickaxe and add copiously jewels so that if I find the ores I need, I should get more of them when I mine them. I even reforge a magnet to get even more ores. So, all in all, everything I put into the crystal are 3 plentiful catalysts increasing ores by 60%, an augment which guarantees the type of map I'll be getting, which this one specifically will increase the amount of ores that will spawn in the vaults, and I put a seal of the scout, making it a brazier objective so I can light ones to be for specifically buffing ores. Everything was going great. I had been getting tons of ores, and I would probably make it out of here alive. That was what I was thinking until the most stupid thing that could have ever happened to me happened. See this tank zombie? Keep them in mind, because I blame them for everything that transpired after this moment. For some reason, after hitting the tank, I think he got a little mad and then made my game stutter again, and again, and again, and again, and again, until the worst stutter of all happened. I paused the recording for a little bit, and then started playing it again once the tank came back to finish the job he had planned all along. And after all this, I had to go into debt to get my stuff back. Which, going into debt, will add this modifier into vaults that will appear, meaning I will gain no XP from a vault until I pay it back. Day 65, I run into another vault, as I want to at least achieve level 50 before the 100 days, and I fully explored an albeit normal difficulty dungeon. After leaving, I noticed that I actually got a pog from the vault, which at least decreased the amount of ores I would need by one of each. I am more than halfway to being able to craft the angel block. All I need are a few more unique ores and level 50. I also work on making my build better by reforging some gear pieces for stats focusing around mana, whether it be ability power, mana regen, cooldown reduction, or max mana, because I also add on the fireball skill, which means in this build I can freeze enemies in place and then explode them with a massive fireball explosion. Day 68, I finally pay off my debt so I can go back to not having that modifier, after which I go into another modified ore vault. And to see the effectiveness of the fireball, here you go.
Fireball!
Looking at the one piece of vault gear that I got from that pain bucket, actually gave me a wand with a lot of AP and a level into the fire volley specialization, which does increase the damage of fireball by a large margin, but makes it slightly harder to use as it can bounce around now. Also of a random note, all the passive mobs seem to really like the geode I made. For the most part, days 70 through 72 were spent with me going through different vaults, successfully completing them. And I got the last vault ores that was needed for the Echo Pog. While then, days 73 through 75 had me dying in vaults, putting me into major debt. On day 76, I had finished a vault, but it just didn't feel worth it without gaining the vault experience, so I had but one plan.
I owe the banks a lot of money, but little do they know, I just learned about manifestation. Now I'm gonna get so much money.
By using the same methods I had earlier, I can also make catalysts for gaining more coins, and I can also make a dragon room inscription, which has the highest amount of gold in it. It is still going to be very risky, as this room has similar mobs like one of those freaks that chased me earlier, so they're going to be tougher than the average mob. With that fact in mind, I add on a Phoenix Capstone. Capstones add guaranteed modifiers to the vaults, and the Phoenix one adds a modifier where if I die in the vault, I will revive with all my health and some extra bonus health, which will then allow me to have a second chance at the vault, which proved very useful. And while yes, I know this is the cheesiest method I could have used, but I just wanted to get the XP once again. I was very glad that I used the Phoenix Capstone here. Once I finished up inside the dragon room, I decided to play it mostly safe and at a minimum get the braziers I needed to complete the vault. On the night of day 77, I dripped myself out with transmogging my armor with the transmogs I got from unlocking Powa, and run into the last vault needed for unlocking level 50. I did craft the angel block on day 80 and unlocked level 50, though I had just had my recording paused for some reason, so that's why I didn't have the footage of me actually building it. My bad. Which, having this now, will be incredibly useful in the making of my base, as I won't have to worry as much about falling and I can just more easily build everything. Which, having said that, most of these last days are focused on building. I replaced a lot of the first 2 to 3 layers of blocks with white concrete, giving a gradient to the walls and towers. With day 100 upon us, I had been planning on making this last vault very special. You see, I had bought a cake crystal from a vendor a while ago. Cake crystals can only be found in either vendors like I mentioned, or through the black market. I know I hadn't really talked about the black market at all, but it is where we go to spend our soul shards. After you finish crafting a cake crystal, you have the main objective of finding cakes in the vault. These cakes will add more and more difficulty to the vault, but also more and more chest spawns, so they can be very lucrative. And I was thinking this would be a great way to end the video. That was until I had paused my recording and forgot to start it again. So I didn't record the entirety of the cake vault, but I can give a rundown on what had happened. I was making my way through the vault just fine, until I got to an annoying tile set having deep dark mob variants, which have some of the most difficult to kill mobs, and on top of that, having around 27 cake stacks made them absolute chads, and then I die all because of a baby champion variant. And to top it all off, I was almost to an altar where I could have ended the vault. So, with that depressing end, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe, because if this video does well enough, I will do 200 days, and I will try to make it take less time than the time between my last video and this one. With all that said, I do hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this. So anyways, bye-bye!